Continues with another newsmaker interview, this time with House Republican leader Tony McCombie of Savanna. Welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Let's kind of bring folks up to date on big issues like the budgets and things. But as far as this session is going, when you went into it, what were your expectations? And now, 2 weeks ahead of adjournment, where do things lay in your mind?
Yeah, well, as you're aware, this is starting to get to be the really busy time. We've had some changes within the management of the Democrat caucus, so even the floor has been a little bit different. We're starting on time and some process things, so that was certainly unexpected, but it kind of lets us know a little bit more of what's coming. As the minority party, we're often left in the dark. So we were anticipating with the budget estimates from before with the revenue and how they continuously change, go up, go down. We were anticipating that this year would be a push from the Democrat caucus to have a tax increase. And we've been talking about that as our caucus. Our thoughts are to, if anything else, have a flat budget, have no tax increases, and we're going to have to amend some policies that have been passed, especially concerning energy. Because there's unintended consequences for a lot of things that we do here, and now we see ourselves in a place where there's going to be tax increases. There has to be changes in the transportation, energy crisis that is going on. So we have a lot of things that are happening right now.
You talk about the energy crisis, and does that have to do with the actual amount of electricity that's available to consumers here in the state of Illinois through the grids that we're all associated with?
Yeah, that's certainly part of it. As we learn more through the auction that just went through with MISO and as well as PJM, a big piece of that is capacity, and that's where the increase in the consumers will have. So the combination of policies that, like we've said, we've passed. Luckily in Illinois, we have nuclear, so there is initiatives to hopefully push that through. We have the Clinton station that has one reactor that is in MISO. If we could fire that other reactor, build that other reactor up, that would be a real improvement. But it's really about the capacity, and these maps are pretty big. It's not just, when you think of a MISO or PJM, it's not just Illinois. A combination of that with shutting down coal and natural gas and not expanding nuclear is certainly a problem. So it's really about capacity.
One of your House Republican colleagues, Ryan Spain, was here talking about that very thing this last week, and his thinking was the state has got to widen its energy portfolio, bring back the natural gas plants, bring back some of the coal-fired capacity if that's possible. The thing that the state really wants to avoid, and what you're talking about, is not being in a situation like Texas was a few years ago when they had a horrendous ice storm and people literally died because they couldn't get electrical power.
Oh, it's definitely a public safety issue. And as technology grows, the need for energy, grows as well. And it's just like we can't grow here in Illinois with big manufacturing settings because the cost of property taxes as well as the cost of energy. So these are two areas I think that we definitely need to do better.
The Democrats are also talking about an omnibus energy bill that they're looking at with a lot of different pieces. Will there be any Republican input into that if this starts to gain traction here in the last couple of weeks of the session?
There has been no consideration to the Republican caucus, which really is a shame. Although we are in the minority, with 40 members, we represent parts of 102 counties. And we have a large group that has the MISO district, and so that's certainly an issue. But not even so, even where we have up north with me, we have the nuke fleets and we have PJM. It is still going to be an increase this year, and it's about capacity.
And you're in the Commonwealth Edison area?
I have a mix. I have a mix.
Yeah, and same with Ameren, and you've got the other
gerrymandered maps for energy
and co-ops and everything else. And I want to turn to the budget for a minute because that's the thing that we always want to see how things are going in that respect. And you mentioned at the outset of your remarks we've been looking at different revenue estimates all the way going back before veto session that looked like there would be a huge deficit then. Then we get to the governor's budget message in February, and it looks like, well, the revenues will match spending, at least as that package went together. And now the governor's office of management and budget is saying this week that it looks like we'll have about $500 million less than it was going to take to put that budget together. Is anything I said inaccurate? Am I close to that?
No, nothing at all. Even with the $500 million drop, it's still looking at close to $1.9 billion. That is going to be our deficit. And we also, the definition of balance is interesting, and coming from municipal government, but we cannot predict or budget on futures. We have to spend on what we have now, not what we think we're going to get in after the fact. And that's a big problem with the state of Illinois. Our budget has grown. When I first started in 2017, I think the GRF was $36 billion, and here we are today, an estimate that we're going to be passing at $55 billion. And that's a lot of money for taxpayers.
So if we're looking at right now, going into the last couple of weeks of being around, as some estimates say, from $500 million to $1 billion off, what do the budgeteers do behind the scenes to try to make everything fit back, the spending and the revenue package come together within those contours?
Yeah, this has been an issue since I've been leader. This is the start of my third year, that we are not really included in those discussions. And oftentimes, the Democrats, from my understanding, are having some working group meetings. They consider the appropriation meetings or committee hearings as part of the budgeting process, which is not truly accurate. But behind the scenes, I think with some of the budgeteers on the majority side, that there is a wish to use some of our expertise, but it's not really digging into numbers, and it's certainly not bringing us into a conversation about what our priorities are.
And last year, of course, things got very strange in the last hours of the session, where you had a group of moderate Democrats who were not for any of the revenue increases that the governor wanted to put in that package. It took 3 votes to get that thing through, and now this week there are numerous reports that one of the appropriations chairs has been removed from that position. Fred Crespo from Hoffman Estates has been removed from that and the Democratic caucus. How are you reading that, looking across the other side of the aisle?
Well, you're correct. Last year was very interesting. It took 3 times for the vote, and it took them to break their own rules that they drafted to make that happen. And this is an interesting, way to go about it. With Crespo, with Representative Crespo, I worked with him on the Audit Commission as well as subbing in on several appropriations, and really is going to be a loss for the state of Illinois that he is no longer in those positions. Very fair-minded. I don't know, obviously, all the particulars of the whys, but it is going to be a loss for the state of Illinois, that's for sure. But as we go forward, I think you're going to see, and Speaker Welch said it himself, we have a group of tax and spend Democrats, and that's going to be hard to manage for him.
As we go into this last couple of weeks, what do you expect the back and forth to be as those numbers come together?
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be back and forth between us as a minority party. Our hope is that the budget continues to really be crafted in the Senate, because then we actually see the budget a couple days before we're going to be passing it. Obviously, there's always amendments to that, but at least we can see the real framework. So that's my hope. And I think on the Senate side, they get along a little bit better to want to work along together.
And as Speaker Welch has said in recent days, that whatever passes at the end of the month may not be the final decision on what the budget actually looks like, because we have no idea how the Trump tariffs might impact state spending in terms, or state revenues in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, we might have more money than they're anticipating. Already our steel industry is doing really well in Illinois. But there is certainly some concern with federal decisions. But that's going to be a reaction of us here, whether it's the health care and funding for illegal immigration, for climate, and environment issues, for transportation. There is certainly some priorities of the federal government that could affect us, but that means we're going to have to change our decisions.
We've got a little less than a minute left. I was wondering, what are you hearing in terms of mass transit reform and trying to get a bill passed that will deal with all of the issues in Chicago and surrounding counties?
Yeah, and that's interesting because that line item was left out of the governor's budget address in February. So now we're looking at $770 million, and it's going to only be passed through a tax increase.
And in a situation like that, who's going to pay? Is it going to be something on a regional basis, or does that come downstate as well?
Yeah, unfortunately, another place that we're not sitting there, which is unfortunate because we have a lot of people with a lot of knowledge in transportation. But I do believe it's going to be a combination. We've seen a lot of different proposals, whether it's the RTA district, downstate. So we'll have to wait and see what they finally come up with.
House Republican leader Tony McCombie of Savanna, former mayor of Savanna, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.